Hey everybody, welcome to the FSH Fantasy Sports Help podcast for the week of August 6th to the 12th, 2018. We're talking fantasy baseball. I'm your host, Pete. I'm here with my other hosts, Leland and also Ryan.
Hello.
Hey.
Yeah, so let's get into it. Let me get back over here. What are we talking about?
There's a lot of call-ups and there's a decent amount of call-ups, not as many demotions, but
Right, like Blue Jays, they recalled Danny Jansen from AAA.
Yep, catcher, and I don't know. He's almost got like mixed league upside. I think he might be worth owning in 12-team leagues. I don't know, Ryan. He's got decent numbers.
Yeah, absolutely. Power numbers, which is impressive. He's played across 4 different levels, AAA all the way down to high A this year, and between them, he's got over 20 home runs. So he's looking really good power-wise, and like you said, catcher's a wasteland. So I'm saying he's borderline standard league relevant at this point.
And also, it's looking like Russell Martin is not going to be blocking him. They're playing Martin at third with Donaldson out, so he should play every day. And then,
Yeah, so also the Orioles, they purchased the contract of Cedric Mullins. He's batting, he's got a good batting average there. What's it?
in
go through his
minors,
stats.
he's got good numbers.
It looks nice.
288 he's been hitting with 11 home runs and 21 steals.
AAA numbers.
Right. So, that shows that he's got the potential to at least get maybe like 5 to 10 steals rest of the season, because the Orioles are going to let him play every day. I think it's time that they just start committing to the youth movement and rebuilding. I don't know, Ryan, what do you think? I don't think he's mixed league value yet, but definitely in deep leagues.
Deep leagues, especially for steals, like you said. He had a season in 2016 with 30 steals.
Wow.
So I think steals are his best asset right now. And not that we're going to be promoting a lot of Orioles, but at the same time, it does drive his price down. So if you need someone who's going to provide speed, he might be a good deep league option.
Well, they're not completely devoid of talent. They still have Adam Jones and Mark Trumbo and Chris Davis and Trey Mancini. So it's not like the Marlins.
It's true, but if you're touting Chris Davis with a C and Mark Trumbo, then you're on the end of your talent level there.
Yeah, well, Adam Jones is still having a good year, but let's see. The Cardinals just called up Adolis Garcia, and their outfield situation's been kind of a mess the entire season. They also have Tyler O'Neill. Dexter Fowler's been a bust, but I think he's injured right now, and Harrison Bader's there. They traded Tommy Pham away, so it's almost like a situation I kind of want to avoid, but Garcia does have some upside with 20 home runs and 10 steals in 98 games. That's pretty solid. I don't know. Similar to Mullins, he's probably somebody you just want to monitor until maybe they start to do something.
Yeah, and the Cardinals kind of do this, right? They find these outfielders who are not super young, but they already have some polish to them.
Jose Martinez.
Yeah, exactly. They had Piscotty and Grichuk not too long ago that had a lot of potential, but they usually don't get full playing time, so their value's limited already right away.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd rather have Bader or O'Neill when he comes back than Garcia.
Yeah, he's just more of like a real deep league option, but yeah, like I said, it's almost more just to monitor.
Yeah, the Cardinals are definitely having a bad season, so it's kind of been tough all around for them. So yeah, moving along here. Let's see. Astros recalled Derek Fisher from AAA. So what do you guys think about that?
Well, he's been up before and kind of underwhelmed, but he does have a decent mix of power and speed. So I don't know, if he does get a chance to play every day, he could have value. I just don't think it's going to happen. I don't know, Ryan, what you think?
Yeah, I'm sort of on the fence like you are. The tools are there. He's got great power, 60 grade power, 70 grade speed on an 80 grade scale. So there's a lot of potential, but he's never really turned in an admirable performance in the majors, and I would need some time. I know the Astros are kind of battered up right now, but I would say he's not even deep league relevant yet. Just want to keep an eye on for the future because he's got that potential and could break out. You never know when it happens.
Yeah, I think part of the problem is that they're never really fully committed to giving him a chance, and that doesn't really do you a lot of favors. Similar to another Astros outfielder that got recalled recently, Kyle Tucker. I do think Kyle Tucker might get a little bit more of an opportunity, but he really struggled in his first stint, only batting 156. But he is still I would say a top 10 prospect. I don't know how you feel about him, Ryan, but
Yeah, there's just not a lot of prospects that give you like 5 category performance almost. So you really have to keep an eye on him because he has that kind of potential. And not only that, it's on the Astros. So the counting stats would be there as soon as he starts to catch fire again. But he goes right back to the minors and tears it up. So it'll come eventually where it translates into the majors, most likely. It's just a matter of time.
Yeah. All right. So moving on. Going back to another prospect here, Sean Reed Foley. He's going to make his major debut
against the Royals, who are terrible. So
Yeah.
even though he pitches on the Blue Jays, they're better than the Royals. I mean, you don't have to be. There's only maybe 3 teams that are worse than the Royals. Well, are there 3? The Mets and the Marlins, and that's probably it. Actually, yeah.
Orioles, maybe.
Orioles, yeah, the Orioles are pretty bad too. But I don't know, Ryan. What do you think of Foley? I mean, he could be a streaming option at least for just that start.
Yeah, definitely a streaming option for that start because of the weak matchup, like we mentioned. But they have talked about keeping him in the rotation. There's not really a lot of people blocking him, and if I'm not mistaken, Stroman just went on the DL, which we'll get to in a little bit. But he does have a potential rotation spot that could open up, and he's had a really solid K rate. He's striking out 10 per 9 right now, and only allowing a league average walk rate. So there is a lot of potential there if he keeps the spot. I would say he's worth a deep league add if he does keep the rotation spot.
And I mean, the Blue Jays do have some offensive talent. They're not completely devoid with Tasker Hernandez and Donaldson's still not back. I don't know if he doesn't even seem like he's coming back. But we'll get into the injury stuff. But there's still more call-ups.
Yeah, there's still more. There's the Padres purchased the contract of Jacob Nix. He's a right-hand pitcher.
Yeah, and any pitcher for the Padres, you kind of just want to monitor because it's a favorable park, and they might not offer a lot of run support, but if you're able to maybe scrape out like a 3-2 win or something like that, you can be probably relevant in mixed leagues like Tyson Ross was. I mean, Nix doesn't have a lot of Caper 9 upside, but I don't know how you feel about him, Ryan.
Yeah, I agree with you. He's not an outstanding high ceiling guy, but he's pretty safe floor with a decent strikeout rate. Plus, he's also a pretty good ground ball pitcher, and he's got pretty good control. Or he's expressed that pretty well in the minors, at least. He's got a solid floor.
He's similar to like Soroka a little bit. He just is kind of a low floor. I mean, a solid floor, but I don't think his upside or ceiling's that high.
Right. Exactly. I agree.
And also, the Reds were called Robert Stevenson, who. He was a former first round draft pick, so he does have a little bit of a pedigree and some upside, but I don't know, the Reds just have not had much success with starting pitching prospects, and it's not the easiest ballpark to pitch in, but he does have a decent K per 9 potential.
Yeah, he's a weird one, right? I mean, he's got so much potential, but he hasn't really lived up to it at all. Last year, he didn't do too well. He had a 5 ERA almost. But the strikeouts were still okay. The thing is that he has one amazing pitch. It's that slider. And if you measure it according to WRC scale, then 100 is average. Batters facing that slider had an 8 WRC plus. So they were 92% worse than league average facing a slider. So that pitch is ridiculous, but it's just not in the strike zone enough. And neither is his other pitches to keep him from having, 4 or 5 walks a game.
But still, though, if he's just, if he can just manage his walk rate and control, then he could have value.
Yeah, look at Glasnow. Right now, he's kind of doing that. He has electric stuff, and if he can keep up what he's been doing for the Rays and keep the command a little bit better and harness it for strikes, then has a huge ceiling.
Mm-hmm.
Stevenson will make his major debut against the Mets this Wednesday.
Yeah, and you always should stream against the Mets.
Yeah, stream against the Mets. We'll probably have him listed that day, most likely. Phillies option, Zach Eflin.
Yeah, that's a weird one. I feel like this is more of a roster construction move because of the trade they made for Bohr, which we'll get into. Yeah. But he'll probably be recalled. He's pitched pretty well this year. I don't know, Ryan. We've used him as a streaming option before in the past, too.
Yeah, I don't see any reason why he would be there for a while. It is kind of odd that it might be for a few weeks, I've heard, because he's doing really well in the season. He's got a good strikeout rate, a sub 4 ERA. So it's just must be like you said, roster construction.
Or
I
limiting
doubt
his
there's any
innings
playing
maybe
time.
too.
Yeah, it could be an innings limit. That's true.
The Nationals signed Greg Holland to one-year contract. He's available out of the pen for both games on Tuesday. It's a doubleheader in Atlanta.
Yeah, Greg Holland. The Cardinals gave him a ton of money thinking that he'd be the next closer for them, but it just has not worked out at all. I feel like they rushed him back from the injury, and just he's never really been the same since. Because he was decent last year, right? I mean, he was relevant.
Yeah, he was okay. He had a 3.61 ERA, and
But he
had
did
almost
have
30%
some
strikeout
saves.
rate.
You know, he was able to at least hold down a closing job.
Yeah, last year, but I mean, he's imploded this year. It's been ridiculous. I'm totally off the Holland train now.
Yeah, he used to be elite when he was on the Royals, but after that one injury, he's never really been the same since.
Right.
And back to the Phillies. The Phillies acquired Justin Bour from the Marlins, which, I think is more of a depth move because Carlos Santana is already playing first. So unless Justin Bour is going to play somewhere else, Carlos Santana has played in the outfield before, but if you've seen Carlos Santana, he's not the most in shape guy. I don't know. He's like CC Sabathia kind of for the outfield.
Let's say he doesn't have the outfield body type. I guess
Yeah,
we could
right.
say.
I'm trying to be polite with it, but yeah, he's not bred for that right now. So I don't know how they're going to work that out with him and Bour. Maybe platoon, which just means whatever value Carlos Santana had is going to diminish. But the last transaction, which is a pretty big one, and this is something I thought was going to happen at the deadline, but Fernando Rodney was moved to the Athletics from the Twins, which means the closing position for the Twins is open now, and we'll get into that later. But right now we should probably go over some injury stuff.
Yeah, let's go over injury news. Let's talk about some hitters. There's a bunch. We have.
Let's just cover quickly the people who've returned.
Yeah, let's go through it.
Delino DeShields, outfielder for the Rangers, came back from concussion. Obviously needs steals. He's an option, but barely. Josh Bell's returned from the Pirates. Rafael Devers, Correa, and then I don't know about Jose Altuve. Do you think he'll return next week, Ryan?
I think they're going to be careful with him. Honestly, why wouldn't they at this point when they know they're going to make the playoffs? It's pretty much a lock
Sweet.
unless the
there's
A's
no
come
reason.
back.
They will.
Exactly. I think they'll wait as long as they need to.
So that might not be next week. It might be, or it might not be this week. It'll probably be maybe a week or two. Nomar Mazara is pretty close to returning from a sprained right thumb. And Wilson Ramos, who has yet to play a game for the Phillies yet, because when they acquired him, he was already injured. It's looking like he's due to go back next week, but that might be... With Wilson Ramos, you want to maybe give him a little bit more time because he's a little bit older of a player.
Right.
Another catcher who's injured is John Hicks for Detroit. With the right groin strain, that's looking like a multi-week injury. And then Will Myers, he just is always hurt. I mean, it's looking like a multi-week injury, maybe 1-2.
George Springer's out.
Yeah, with a thumb sprain, and that could be kind of weird because any injury for a hitter to their hands could kind of affect how they swing and stuff. So, I don't know. I don't know if you heard about this, Ryan, but like hand injuries tend to affect the power that hitters have sometimes.
Yeah, there's a few specifically. Obviously, like your wrist, the hamate bone in your hand too. That's also a big one. That saps a lot of power. And Will Myers, I believe, has had issues with that too before, and that sapped his power for a season. So it could happen to Springer. So it's just something to keep an eye on as he comes back, because he can kind of go through these slumps too. So if he starts slumping when he comes back, it might be the result of a lingering injury.
And speaking of hand injuries, Edwin Encarnacion, who you just said was day-to-day, but he was recently just put on the DL, right?
Yeah, exactly. Last night, on Saturday night, he was day-to-day, but he turned this into a DL stint with his right hand being bruised. So obviously Encarnacion is a little bit older, But this is kind of the time of season when you have these day-to-day type injuries that, because of the length of the season and playing so many games, you might have them turn into DL stints, especially on the 10-day DL. So just keep this in mind as you go through this third part of the season, that you're going to see a lot of these players have a little break with a 10-day DL.
Well, and also the Indians are probably going to make the playoffs, so they're not really that concerned about winning games. I mean, they are, but they probably feel like they're going to make it regardless. And I would say also teams that are completely out of the playoff race have no intention of playing people too. So unless you're in the select few of teams that are struggling to make the playoffs, those are the teams that are going to push people who are probably dealing with minor injuries to play.
Exactly.
Chris Bryant, the Cubs, third base. I guess we've talked about this before.
Yeah, a lot of times.
He's out still. Shoulder inflammation. Looks like maybe coming back 1 to 2 weeks.
I don't know, Ryan. Chris Bryant's sort of becoming injury prone to me. I don't know how you feel about him, but I'm almost going to avoid him from now on. I don't like the fact that he always hits second or first in the order, and then he doesn't get the RBIs that I want out of him. You know, he had such a strong beginning to his career, but it's starting to kind of, I don't know. I'm starting to lose kind of interest in him. How do you think about that?
Yeah, it is kind of concerning. I think it's twofold, because obviously for this year it's a big disappointment. His numbers are down across the board, just even rate stats, not even accumulative numbers. But since it's kind of been the shoulder that's nagging him, that's a big concern. I wouldn't mind next year, though, coming into the season. If his stock price drops, it could open up some opportunities. But for this season, it's a little disappointing. I don't know. I'm going to do some more research and see if there's any more shoulder history, but shoulder affects everything you do on the field. So it's a little bit concerning for the future.
Yeah, and also, I mean, I know that the Cubs have a strong lineup, but if he's going to continue to hit at the top of it, you really can't expect him to produce much in the way of RBIs. And in the beginning of his career, he profiled as a power hitter who would produce runs. So they're not really using like that. Now Javier Baez has kind of become that role.
Mm-hmm.
Mike Trout of the Angels is out also. This one we've heard about. Big news.
I mean, the Angels probably should have put him on the DL a week ago, but they were hoping maybe he could come back from it. And I feel like the Angels have yet to really give up on this season, but I don't know, Ryan, are they a playoff team? I feel like they're barely going to make a wild card spot.
Yeah, no, I give them no chance. I'm not seeing how that's possible. We've talked before, even just privately, about how bad their rotation has been luck-wise.
Ohtani, Garrett Richards,
Yeah.
Skaggs we'll get into. Yeah.
Yeah, you need things to break your way a little bit if you're a team of their caliber with only a few big superstars. So I do not see them making a playoff push at all, especially the way the A's have been playing. It's been absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah, I did not see that coming. Well, I mean, I thought that they could hit. I did not think their rotation or bullpen would provide enough to be like a 10-game over 500 team or whatever they are.
Yeah, it's been outstanding. It's been fun to watch, though. I'll give you that.
Yeah, I mean, it's nice to see teams that don't have any money really do well, because you're so used to the Red Sox and Yankees just buying their way into a division title. These next couple injuries are long-term ones. Josh Donaldson, Aaron Judge, and Gary Sanchez, we probably won't see them for another 2, maybe 3 weeks. I feel like the Blue Jays obviously have nothing to play for, and the Yankees are probably going to be a wildcard team. The Red Sox have built too much of a lead up, so I don't really feel like they're going to rush either of those players back. And then as far as pitchers go,
yeah, we got Ross
Stripling.
Yeah, the Dodgers. Looks like he returned to injury.
Yeah, but unfortunately, he's going to be moved to the bullpen after he had such a strong first half and was an all-star. I'm a little surprised by that, Ryan. I don't know how you feel about it, but
yeah, I'm surprised as well. I mean, I think that the Dodgers bullpen is in a little bit of trouble right now. Just of course after we're going to mention Kenley Jansen
in a minute. Yeah, we're going to mention him later on.
I think they have to make some changes with the bullpen. I'm just surprised they chose Stripling. Honestly, if anyone, I expected maybe Ryu or Buehler with an innings limit, but
I would say Buehler because he's a young player, and I don't think they want him to throw that much. I feel like eventually they're going to probably switch the two, but I don't really want to speculate too much.
Mm-hmm.
Chris Sale of the Red Sox, he returned.
Yeah, and
that's a big one.
I mean, he's
he beasted out
a
today
top
too.
5 pitcher. Yeah, he's. I think he's probably going to be, if not the Cy Young, he'll be in the voting
Yeah, one of the best
Oh,
to
he has to
watch.
be. He has to be. He faced 16 batters, struck out 12 today. Incredible.
That's ridiculous. That's hard to do in a video game.
Exactly.
That's yeah. I mean, there's not much to say about him other than that he returned. If he's
back,
back,
yeah.
play him. Yeah,
And he's
immediately.
playing well, yeah, whenever he's in.
And
Brandon
it's like we
Morrow.
mentioned before. Who knows if he was even truly injured? This could be
Right.
another 10-day DL stint to
some
to
rest.
rest.
True.
him for
Yeah, a lot of
playoffs.
teams abuse it now.
Why not?
It was different
Yep.
when you had the 15. I don't know. That extra 5 kind of made a difference, but
Yep.
now it's almost like when just a starter has kind of like a day off in a certain area, you let him sit on it. But some closers we're gonna start getting to. Brandon Morrow, I feel like he's been injured for so much longer than I expected him to be. I mean, I know he got hurt with the whole putting on the pants thing, but this is a whole different injury, isn't it?
Yeah, but I'm just going to assume it's the same thing because that sits better in my mind, and I get more enjoyment out of thinking that
Yeah.
he injured himself with his
I'm just
pants.
gonna mark this up to old age instead of any kind of like biceps inflammation. I'm just gonna put old age instead.
Exactly. Skinny pants.
It could be the pants.
Yeah.
Kyle Barraclaw. I don't know what happened to him. He was doing amazing when he first inherited that closing job. Right now, he's just lost the ability to throw strikes. He's almost has some like Rick Ankiel yips, Ryan. I don't know what's going on with him.
Yeah, it does seem that way. I don't know what's happened with that, but I mean, his walk rate was never great, honestly. His first season, he had like a 20% walk rate almost.
He's always had a high walk rate, but his K rate was also insane also, which is the risk reward with owning him. So you see the upside when he's not walking people. He was like a top 15 closer for that little stretch. And then you see the downside when he's unrosterable and he's put on the DL without to me, this is a phantom injury. I don't know about you, but I'm thinking this is just more for him to like work out mentally what's wrong with him than really anything physical.
Yeah, it definitely could be. I mean, the thing is that worries me a little bit is that when you look at his first pitch strike rate, which is a big indication of how many batters you're going to walk, it's as low as it's has been since his premier season. So hopefully, even if this is a case of the yips, he can kind of come back and set things straight, or else it's going to be hard to own him.
Well, speaking of closers, I don't know what happened to Arodys Vizcaíno, but he's been on the DL a lot longer than I thought he would be. I originally thought it would be just a 10-day DL stint, but he's already missed almost a month now, and AJ Minter has been pretty solid taking over for him. I don't know. I have Vizcaíno shares, so I'm a little concerned. How do you feel, Ryan, about him regaining the closer job? I mean, Minter's already been talked about being the closer of the future there before, the season even started. So
Yeah, it's odd because he's 27. He should be in like the prime of his career, if anything. So I'm not sure why. I haven't heard news on why this shoulder issue has been extended so long into the season. But if they're already looking to keep Minter on for the future, I would not be surprised if they shop him around come the end of the season into next. Vizcaíno, that is.
yeah, I mean, this is you kind of want to sell high while you still can, even though he's dealing with an injury. He's still only 27.
Mm-hmm.
Michael Waka, he's out.
He's been out for a long time now. I feel like he's slowly getting closer, and he was putting up, pretty decent numbers on a decent team before he got injured. So he's somebody you do want to monitor, especially in standard leagues. I feel like he's worth owning once he comes back. Tyler Skaggs, I mean, him and Gary Richards, I feel like they're always injured. Gary Richards is out for the season, by the way, with Tommy John surgery. But I don't.
If
I
only
really,
there was
I really
a-
like Tyler Skaggs. I had him as a breakout candidate going into the year, and he pitched really well. I don't know, Ryan. You probably owned a couple of shares, haven't you?
Yeah, I owned a few shares, but honestly, I was not expecting it to keep up as far as injury history and his peripherals. He just seemed to be overperforming for what it was. So I sold high on Skaggs. I was pretty happy with the return, especially now watching him sit on the DL on some opponents' rosters. So yeah, I never believed it would be too sustainable. He's never had a long track record.
Well, yeah, because you knew that he was due to get injured. So when he does perform well, that is always the opportunity to sell high. Sort of like Rich Hill or Alex Wood. There's a lot of players like that. Another player, actually, speaking of the Dodgers, Hyun-Jin Ryu is due to come back soon, and we'll get into him later as an ad, but, I mean, he's been out a very long time. I feel like a lot of people have just forgotten about how well he was pitching before he got hurt.
Yeah. That extreme groin strain that he had was ridiculous.
Eduardo Rodriguez from Red Sox, he's out with an ankle sprain.
Yeah, and I don't know, it's weird. Originally, there was talk that he might miss the entire season because he would need surgery, but it's looking like he's maybe 2-3 weeks away. He's just been doing really well for them. I feel like he's always been kind of fringe worth owning, and this is the year that he was kind of going to break out before he got injured.
Yeah, and the thing is that we've talked a few times on this podcast about injuries and is there such thing as injury prone, and really you have to look for recurring injuries of the same variety, right? Mm-hmm. And that's what injury prone is. He hasn't had, let's say, one particular thing every injury, but it's always lower half issues, always his legs, his ankle, his knee that are giving him issues. And as a pitcher, that's really worrying at a young age.
Well, that's where you generate a lot of the power too.
Exactly.
He's not a small guy, so maybe it could be weight related.
It's true.
Alex Woods, he's out. Oh, we talked about this. The left adductor.
Adductor. Not abductor, which is what Tyler Skaggs has.
Right.
But it's related to the hamstring, right?
Yeah, one's a hip and one's a shoulder.
Well, regardless, Alex Wood is probably not going to be back for a couple weeks, and you already see what they're doing with Ross Stripling and Kenta Maeda, moving them to the bullpen. So I don't know. This Dodgers rotation is getting a little weird. I don't know how they're going to treat it the rest of the season. Alex Wood could get moved to the bullpen or something,
The whole pitching staff is kind of odd at this point.
Even Kershaw, I don't think is out of the woods completely with that back injury stuff. I can see that creeping up again.
Probably not for the rest of his career, honestly.
Yu Darvish, finally, he's making progress. It's looking like he might return maybe. They're saying next week. I'm going to give it 2. I really, when it comes to Darvish, yeah, exactly. You want to be, generous with the timetable. But I can't give up on him yet. He pitched well for the Rangers when he came back from the injury last year. I don't know, Ryan, how you feel about him, but I can't completely just give up on him.
I'm going to say next year. I'm just so disappointed with him. He's been a huge disappointment, especially if you drafted him. I mean, that's rough, but obviously he has huge potential. It's just a matter of staying healthy. And there's kind of been questions in the Cubs clubhouse on, how he's been approaching his rehab. It's just not really been a good vibe that you're getting from reports overall.
And he's been a disappointment since he was on the Dodgers too, where I thought that he was going to have an advantage going from the American League and pitching in Texas to the National League, but it's kind of been the opposite.
True.
Carlos Martinez is out also. It's a right shoulder sprain.
Yeah, Carlos Martinez, man, this whole year is just so weird. He started out amazing. Then the injuries crept up. Feels like they rushed him back, re-injured the same injury, and now it's almost like he's compensating with that injury, creating more injuries. And I don't want to say that he's a liability and done for the rest of the year, but I'm sort of moving on from him as a reliable pitcher going forward. I don't know, Ryan, how you feel about him, but
yeah, I think you have to, because even this year he did well, and then he had, I believe it was a lat strain that he pitched through with a reduced velocity and reduced effectiveness. So he's kind of hard to trust at this point, because even if he's on the field, he might be pitching through something that's going to hamper his performance. So I don't think you can really call him like one of the true fantasy aces anymore. He's not reliable enough.
Lance McCullers, he's out too. It's some right elbow discomfort.
Yeah,
and more Astros, right?
We'll get into the repercussions of that when we come to the ads, but anybody in the Astros pitching staff this year, I don't know, Ryan. I mean, I don't know. They're almost like the Pirates, how they used to be. They just take anyone and kind of get the best out of them.
It's been exciting to watch, honestly. Like you said, everyone on the staff has been pretty amazing this year. McCullers has probably been one of the lesser of the starters, but even that says something. So,
Yeah, because Garrett
like
Cole
you said,
had kind of weak
yeah.
numbers before coming to the Astros, and what's his name? Who's the guy who like came out of nowhere this year? He was sort of decent last year. Chad something.
Oh yeah. Oh wow, I'm blanking on it too. I can't believe it.
All right, let's move on. Steven Strasburg.
Yeah, Houston strong.
Take two. Steven Strasburg.
He's out with shoulder
perennial
inflammation.
perennial list member of this.
Charlie Morton.
Yeah,
Sorry, I
Charlie
had to do
Morton.
it.
I have 0 shares of Charlie Morton. I really did not think that he was going to produce like this, but I did.
Oh, you
I
scored
did like
big
the
if you
strikeout to walk potential. I don't know. I didn't think that he was going to be this effective.
Mm-hmm.
Steven Strasburg is
Yeah.
somebody I really don't want to own anymore. Really, every year I feel like he's on this list. Week in, week out, and it's never just a clear like he'll be out for the year. It's always like he'll be out maybe a week, and then it turns out to a month. And that's the worst kind of injury stuff, to where you're not prepared for dealing with it fully because you're underestimating the timetable.
Well, it looks like it's 1 to 2 weeks more. Yeah. So Kevin Herrera of also
Kelvin.
Kelvin. Oh, I missed that. Jesus.
It's a very different. It's a very different
It's like
person
Kelvin
when you
Benjamin.
say Kevin.
Is he like Kelvin Benjamin, or a little different looking? Probably. He's also national. He's out 2-3 weeks. Rotator cuff.
And Sean Doolittle's already injured, so we'll get into the ads later. But Ryan Madsen becomes the de facto closer, which is Ryan Madsen. He's been decent in the past, but this year's kind of been of a struggle.
Hunter Strickland. He's out with a right hand fracture.
Yeah, he broke his hand punching a wall, and
We talked about that. Yeah. It's a pretty dumb.
I don't know if
injury.
he's going to regain the closer position. He was doing amazing before the injury, which just makes the injury that much worse. And Mark Melanson gave him an opportunity to finally be the closer and run with it, and he kind of blew that. But Kenley Jansen, this irregular heartbeat thing, I'm a little worried about because I don't know, Ryan, if you noticed, it's not the first time he's dealt with it.
Yeah, and that's kind of an odd baseball injury, right? We don't really hear a lot about that, but he was, I believe, hospitalized and treated for it before. So it's kind of hard to know how long that could actually end up affecting him. We've not had a lot of experience with
Yeah,
that.
there's a chance that
So
this
it's
injury,
especially because a lot of people drafted him as. Mhm.
there's a chance that this injury could be season long. I don't know.
Yeah, it's very possible. And then who do you look for in the Dodgers bullpen? It's kind of not a lot of reliable options, right? So maybe Scott Alexander, but
Well, we'll get to that later on. Speaking of ads,
Yeah, let's go to
we
some
should
hitter
get into
ads.
them. Yeah, we'll
let's
start with
get-
the hitters.
Let's go right into it.
Ryan, if you want to take the first one.
oh, I guess if I have to, I'll mention the Ray Malik Smith. He's been on fire lately. He's been doing really well since June 1st. He's had almost a 400 average, which is fantastic. And he's been hitting overall for a 200 WRC plus, twice as good as an average major league hitter in that time period. Plus, he's got 25 steals on the season.
In
which
the
is-
first half, basically, because over the last
Pretty
week
much.
he's had like 10.
Yeah, exactly. And the way that steals are shaken out this season, 25 is not a lot when you look at the past history, but it's, for it to be sixth best, that makes those steals a lot more valuable. So especially if you have a few outfield slots in your league, depending on the format, he could be very valuable and help you win that category.
It's also kind of interesting that he really didn't start to go off until the Tommy Pham trade. And I don't know if like the Austin Hedges
Yeah, exactly.
one with Mejia, but I mean, it could just be coincidence, but
I don't know. There's still people, right? We look at the numbers a lot, but I mean, I would be motivated if someone was trying to take my job from me. It's definitely a possibility.
And speaking of outfielders for homer teams that we follow, Michael Conforto. I mean, I know that I've mentioned him multiple times. I can't completely give up on his upside because I feel like he can still hit for power and average. Even on that team, you're obviously not going to get a lot in the way of counting stats, but as like a fourth off-field option on your bench or even a fifth, I feel like you could do a lot worse in standard leagues.
Yeah, and he's one of those players you can pick up, have on your bench. If he goes off, you can maybe see if someone's interested in one of your other outfielders or try to make a trade and open up that spot.
And then another, I mean, former Ray, but Steven Souza Jr. He'll never hit for average, but I don't think there's a lot of players in the league that offer as much power and speed upside as he does. There's really a select few that can hit 30 home runs, steal 15 plus bases, and I mean, I know Arizona hasn't performed like I thought they would offensively, but they're still a pretty decent team with, Goldschmidt, Peralta, Pollock. They traded for Escobar. They have a lot of offensive talent.
Definitely. And I mean 30-16 last season, I believe it was for Souza. So that's elite talent, or it's elite level of talent. You're not going to see a lot of people produce, and Goldie's not stealing anymore. Maybe that means Souza will get more of a green light.
They are pretty aggressive as a team.
Mm-hmm.
Low Hitman is you can add him, stash in deep leagues.
Yeah, White Sox outfield prospect hasn't played a single game yet this season, but I don't know. I'm hearing rumors that he's probably the next big name prospect to get called up, and he offers enough power potential to where, I mean, I know the White Sox offense isn't great, but I could see him at least hitting maybe 10 home runs the rest of the season if he gets called up within the next week or so.
Exactly. And it's not just power. He's actually got a really good hit tool, so it could be power and average, which would be fantastic. And he's not very much well owned right now, so now's the time to grab him for free pretty much.
And, with Nick Senzel missing the entire season, there's really not a lot of high-end prospects left to get called up. I mean, Kyle Tucker's already come back up and down, and you've seen him struggle, but, when you hit on one, like Gleyber Torres, you see the impact it can have. So that's why you need to kind of speculate sometimes. This is a player that I've kind of been monitoring, but I feel like finally he needs to be owned. Isaiah Kiner Falefa?
Yeah, falafel.
It's like a Mediterranean dish.
He's eligible at catcher, but he's been also starting at second and third. And one of the best things about catcher eligible players in fantasies, if they don't play catcher,
Right.
because you just tend to hit so much better when you're not having to play such a physical test, like defensively taxing position on your body like that. And he's got a good mix of power and speed.
He's really unique at that point because he has the steal potential, because he's not really a true catcher. He's a utility player that plays catcher, but he has 7 steals last I checked, and that's 3 more than any other catcher in the league right now.
Yeah, I thought JT Real Muto would start stealing more bases, but he only has, I think, 2 on the season after stealing double digits. Right. So if you're trying to get steals at catcher, he's really the only option I can think of.
Exactly.
And as far as pitching ads go, Colin McHugh.
Houston, Colin McHugh.
Yeah, we talked about McCullers going down. I thought maybe there's a chance Brad Peacock would get the rotation spot, but it's looking like McHugh's going to be the one to get the opportunity. And he's started in the past and been solid. And as a reliever this year, he's been pretty ridiculous. I don't know, Ryan, how you feel about him as an ad?
Yeah, he's been amazing out of the bullpen. He's kind of been like a long relief fireman, and he's got a sub-1 ERA, over 55 innings this year with a 34% K rate. So that's phenomenal, obviously. And if he went into a starting role, of course, he wouldn't be able to keep up that level of success. But with the Astros behind him, with defensively and offensively, as well as his K rates,
right,
he would be super valuable as a starter.
Yeah, he looks like he's going to get some more wins along the way. And
like we mentioned earlier, any Astros pitchers kind of worth not owning, but at least monitoring, just based off of the run support and what potential they have. I mean, they're going to win a lot of games. Speaking of winning a lot of games, the Dodgers are probably next week going to recall Hyun-Jin Ryu off the DL. And I think now might be the time to either stash him if you can afford the DL spot, or even just put him on your bench, because before he got injured, he was pitching really well, and he's been solid throughout his career. I don't think he's really like a high end starter, but at the end of your bench, he's really valuable.
Absolutely.
Next guy here looks like
Oh, Jaime Barria on
Yeah.
the Angels. He's somebody I kind of thought about adding on other lists because, his strikeout potential is limited, but
it's disappointing K rate right now. Yeah.
he's been solid just as far as ERA and WHIP, and he reminds me a little bit of Junior Guerrero and Julius Sashin on the Brewers, where they're not like extremely talented pitchers, but I feel like they can be mixed league options just to from the teams that they play on and win potential. I don't know, Ryan, how you feel about him as an ad.
I'm a little bit mixed on him, honestly, because he doesn't have a lot of potential or high ceiling for K rate.
It does look like he's a little bit due to regress too on his peripherals.
Yeah, but the thing that is encouraging is that he has a higher swinging strike rate than his K rate would seem to indicate. So I think there is some room for growth with strikeouts. It's kind of something to keep an eye on, but for now, he's kind of fringy.
And also, the Angels are not as good a team as everyone kind of expected. I feel like they're a little bit on the decline as we sort of enter the second half and finish the year out. But still, there's not a lot of good pitching ads this week, so we're gonna start getting to a little bit more deep league options.
Right. So then we go over to the Reds with Robert Stevenson. Stevenson's
Pedigree.
Yeah, he's a former
pedigree.
first-round pick who's he's failed to find success yet.
But I don't know about you, Ryan. I mean, I feel like the Reds are due to finally hit on a pitching prospect. They failed in Homer Bailey. Mike Leake really wasn't that great. Luis Castillo was good in limited action last year, but this year he's been a bust. It might just be the park. It's not very good for pitchers. But I feel like if you can pitch decent enough, the Reds will offer enough run support to you for you to have wins,
Yeah, it's really tough because you see the potential of these guys like Stevenson, and he's got electric stuff. It's just control. But at the same time, we've seen pitchers even this year make adjustments, whether it's where they stand on the rubbers, closer to third base or first base, and that helped them tremendously with that. So he could be one adjustment away from being a huge breakout star. So there's a lot of potential. It's hard to say what he'll be in the future, but he's a good lottery ticket.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've noticed when it comes to K potential, there's usually a couple underlying factors that kind of keep those pitchers from being successful. Either it's their walk rate, or just they're not using enough of other pitches enough. So if they can fix that, it really does make a small difference from being a deep league auction to mixed if they can figure it out. Sort of in the way that Trevor Bauer and Carlos Rondon finally have, because they are always high K per 9 upside pitchers with high walk rates. They finally limited the walk rates and have been mixed league values.
Yeah,
exactly. It could be just something as simple as changing how much he uses the fastball because it's a really bad pitch, and then he could be great.
Oh yeah. Now another deep lead ad here is Jacob Nix. He started last week against Phillies last week, and he pitched 6 shutout innings
against the Phillies, who
4 strikeouts, 2 walks. That's it.
The Phillies have been touted as a high offensive potential team, but like you stated earlier,
You've yet to see it.
Yeah, they haven't really. I mean, I feel like their reputation precedes what they've actually done. But Jacob Nix, any kind of pitching prospect on the Padres, I want to monitor after Lucchesi and Tyson Ross. They've both been mixed league values in the past.
Do you think he'll be up in the league for long, though? Do you think this is a long-lasting
I don't know.
thing?
What do you think, Ryan? Do you think that he'll stay up the rest of the season?
I think it's still, at this moment, it's hard to say. I don't think that there's much blocking him at this point. Like, say, the Padres,
the Padres are not overloaded with starting pitching talent.
Yeah, if anything, it's outfield that they have a lot of, but not pitching at all. So I wouldn't be surprised if he stays up in the majors, and he's got a good start to his performance after his last outing. So it's very possible.
And then let's move to closing options or relief pitching options, because some of these, it's not completely outright that they're going to be closers, but I mean, considering the options they have against them, they're probably best in line.
Right, exactly. So, Kenley Jansen, he's out for at least next month. So, for the Dodgers, it looks like, a good ad could be Scott Alexander for your leagues.
Yeah, and his numbers are really not that impressive. Even last year for the Royals, he wasn't that spectacular with the solid ERA, but his walk rate is pretty high for somebody who really has very little strikeout potential. So I don't know, Ryan. He's more of like a save specialist to me than somebody I really just want to roster. But obviously, the Dodgers should offer some save chances with Kenley Jansen being out.
Right. How do you feel? I'm curious what you think, Leland, about him being a lefty. Do you think he's going to be more of a lefty specialist, or do you think that will hurt him from getting as many saves?
I thought that. I thought that the Dodgers would have made more deals at the deadline to get more relief help. So when this happened, they would have a clear person to go to. I don't know about you, like Kelvin Herrera or somebody on the Dodgers right now, or Zach Britton, who they've been rumored to go for the past couple of years. So I'm a little surprised they're even in this position. And also, you have to know that Kenley Jansen's had this happen in the past. So
it's a possibility.
Yeah, exactly. The possibility of it happening again was not really, unheard of. So honestly, I really don't want to roster Scott Alexander, but he's already 40% owned. So clearly, he's the one that people are going to as the next in line.
It's on a good team.
I thought Pedro Baez actually would get the next opportunity to get saves, but there's not a lot of left-handed closers. They're really more of a specialist. Case in point, Tony Watson for the Giants. As soon as Hunter Strickland went down, I thought that Tony Watson was going to get save opportunities, and what has he gotten? 0.
Exactly.
So I think it is a common trend in baseball that left-handed pitchers in the bullpen are more of specialists. You see what the Indians do with Brad Hand and Andrew Miller. Cody Allen struggled the entire season, yet they don't want to force either one of those other relief pitchers into that role. So, which is part of the reason why Ryan Madsen now is taking over for the Nationals for Kelvin Herrera.
Right.
And that's only going to be until Sean Doolittle returns from the DL, which should be in maybe the next week or so. But Ryan Madsen for the Athletics was a really good relief pitcher. Ryan, I don't know. He's not doing well this year, but he does have talent. I don't think he's completely devoid of being a solid closer, just in the meantime until Doolittle returns.
Right. With the Nationals, I know they haven't been performing as well as they were expected to, but you have to pick up whoever's closing for them. They have a lot of potential, and they're going to make a push now for the playoffs. They only have a few weeks left to do so. So, yeah, you have to have Madsen on your team for sure.
Yeah, and then moving on, Addison Reed.
For the Twins.
Yeah.
After Fernando Rodney got moved to the Athletics, I kind of assumed that Addison Reed was going to take over for Rodney during the year, but Rodney pitched a lot better than I thought, and Addison Reed was incredible for the Mets, but he's been pretty bad since the Twins brought him over. I don't know, Ryan. His K per 9 is not terrible, and his walk rate's not terrible, but his ERA and WHIP are just so bloated.
Right. It's hard to really find something good in his numbers at the moment for Reed, but they did pay him like a closer, and with a losing team right now, they're not having a good season. I don't think they're going to make any other of their relievers more expensive by putting them in the save role. That would just inflate their contract next year. So
yeah, sadly, the best thing he has going for him is his contract, because that should buy him enough of a kind of like leeway with the role that if he doesn't do well right at the gate, they might have enough confidence in him to just kind of let him figure it out and ride it out.
Yeah,
right.
So, yeah. Again, moving down to Miami, Drew Steckenrider.
Yeah, well, you can't really move down further than
further
Miami.
you got. And physically,
you're scraping the bottom. We're scraping the bottom of the barrel.
Emotionally, spiritually, all that stuff.
Yeah, Drew Steckenrider. We already went over how Kyle Barraclough just could not throw for a strike. And
so he's next in line for these saves.
Yeah, but the thing about Steckenrider is he's just like Barraclough, except a lesser version of him. Very high K rate, very high walk rate. I don't know, Ryan. Obviously anybody seeing save opportunities is relevant when you want that stat, but he does have pretty high K per 9 potential. I don't know how you feel about him as an ad.
Yeah, I think he's worth picking up just for the K per 9 potential, and then throwing a couple saves if you're desperate. But honestly, it's mostly just because he's going to get a few saves, and the Ks are going to be okay. He can still have a night where he blows you up because of a walk and a loss against the Marlins. So It's not a strong position that he's coming from.
Yeah, and let's face it, the Marlins aren't scoring many runs
or winning many games.
Yeah,
but the games they do win should be low-scoring affairs. So obviously Bearclaw had mixing value before he kind of lost it, so maybe Steckenrider can fall into that similar role. But that's it for the ads. And
Yeah, and as always, you can get more advice by visiting us, at fantasysportshelp.com, and you can subscribe to our newsletter. We offer daily fantasy advice.
free.
It's free. We also offer a weekly, big newsletter that has
We're
a
on
lot
Discord.
of the same stuff. And we're on Patreon, too, for similar services. Discord,
and Twitter.
Twitter, all our
FA6
stuff.
Sports.
And Ryan, what's your handle on Twitter?
Yeah, I'm a baseball big head for all sorts of Mets bashing and Rays promoting.
All that stuff.
Well, that's not hard to do. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, exactly. The B team of the year. All right. Have a good one, guys.